Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. Today I have the opportunity to speak to Dong Lee, the CEO of Axiom Innovations, or Scarlett, as some of you might know it. It's a great conversation. We talk a bunch about really his success so far, how he's been able to accomplish so much in his career and be so influential in the mortgage market. We then talk about his transition to Axiom from the DLCG, what that was like, and really kind of the important things to him as he was making that transition. We talk about the current state of tech, kind of that independent versus network. He's got obviously a very interesting take on it, and we dive into that. Finally, we wrap up with, of course, just a little bit of talk of AI, but again, he's got a pretty unique take on it, and it's pretty interesting. So join us for this conversation. I think you're really going to like it. Truth maybe is that every time you put a document in an email, that is the most vulnerable place. Hey Dong, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, Really excited for this convo, one that I've been hoping to have for a little bit. So thought I'd get right into it. Right off the hop, we did a panel, I think you and I and a couple other folks a couple weeks ago, and everyone was kind of, in awe of you, I would say. I'm giving you the softballs up front. I'm really pumping your tires. I'm going to do some hard questions later. So,
Sounds
but
good.
we were going into that panel and I was, oh, we got Dong. He's on the panel. That's great. It's so exciting. And I had the same sentiment myself. When I think about you in the industry, you've always been kind of this master networker, I'll call it. Everyone seems to know you and always say really good things about, the things that you get up to, regardless of where you're at in your career. So, maybe just to start there, I mean, do you agree with that sentiment? And how do you think you got to this point, having at least that reputation? Was it an intentional thing? Was it just something that kind of landed in your lap? Yeah. How do you think about that?
Tom, you know what? I don't know how to answer that.
Maybe this was the tough question.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
should have
So,
saved it to the end. Yeah.
no, but from that perspective, I'll get a lot of people who will come up to me and go, you're so and so. And, everyone I talk to says really great things about you. There's not one single person in the industry that's got something negative to say. And honestly, I don't know how that came to be. I think the truth is, we all try to be our genuine selves. I don't think I'm a different person in this industry than I am with friends outside the industry or in my house. So I think that's what makes things, at least easy for me. And I do think that, oftentimes we are a byproduct of our upbringing. So, my parents being of immigrant descent, living a fairly modest lifestyle, taught us to be sort of good people and upstanding. And it might be a little bit of that Korean culture of subservience to people in leadership. So, it's funny, I was having a conversation with someone the other day. I said, when I graduated university, it took me a long time to speak to anybody in senior leadership because I would literally freeze up. I didn't know how to talk to them because I was taught not to talk to people like that. So, a little bit of the sort of the Canadian culture mixed in with my Korean upbringing sort of is who I am. And
Yeah.
I guess it's worked out okay. I appreciate it, but it is what
Sure.
it is.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, obviously, kind of how I led into that, we see the side of how it's really served you. But I mean, do you feel that, maybe that hesitancy that you talked about to leadership, do you think that, held you back in any way? Like if you could go back, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, would you do it differently? Or do you feel that, hey, that path kind of served you right?
I think the path served me right.
Mm,
If someone said to me, what are my shortcomings? I'm pretty certain what my shortcomings are. I think I could be a lot tougher on people. I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. So, some might consider me to be a little bit naive. But, at the end of the day, I want to go home and I want to be able to put my head down on the pillow and be able to sleep well.
hmm
And I always think that if you treat people the right way and you go about your business in a way that you feel good about, then I have no problems falling asleep at night and feeling like I did all the right things. So, could I have done things differently and got ahead in life? Probably.
Sure.
Could have backfired? Maybe. But at the end of the day, it's been a good career. It's served my family well, and I'll take the lumps with the benefits, and it is who I am. And as I say to people, I can't really undo who I am. And, you do try to pivot every day to be a little bit better, but some of those core things are sort of ingrained and hard to change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think it's a good way to put it. And in general, I think in Canada or anywhere you are, it's a very small world, but I think it's even smaller in the mortgage industry. I kind of stumbled into this industry 6 years ago, and people always would tell me that's a small industry. And then I was, maybe young and naive, to your point and said, yeah, whatever. Everyone says that, but I'm only 6 kind of years into it. And yeah, it's incredibly small, right? And, the people you run into and are the people that you'll run into next year and the year that follows. And your reputation is the thing that'll follow you around everywhere. And I think, again, you've done a great job of that. So let's pivot on from kind of this, intense personal introspection here. And let's get into some more tech stuff. I think, obviously a big change for you recently was the transition over to, I was going to say Scarlett, but I think Axiom's more accurate, I guess. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that transition. Was it something, again, maybe similar to the first question, something that was a master plan, always knew you wanted to kind of get into the world of technology? Was it something that more landed in your lap? What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, I have a motto in life. People, will say nice things and I'll go, how'd you do it? I would always tell people I've been very lucky.
Hmm.
People look at that and go, that's a modest response. But I refer back to the Roman philosopher who said, luck is where opportunity meets preparedness.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And Tom, I'm not a technology guy to any extent. Like, I'm not a coder. I'm not an engineer. To me, it was an opportunity where Joe, who did a great job building Axiom Innovations, Scarlett sort of is a product name. So, the two words sort of roll off each other. And it's really one of those situations where he needed someone to come in and sort of run the front end and he would do the back end. And it was just a nice synergy to come together. He and I have worked together before in the past, so it was easy. This, I often call it a little bit like, when you first start dating somebody, you're always not sure at the beginning because, you always see the best of that individual, but then they're like, is that really them or is that just a facade? So the nice thing with Joe is we know each other well enough that we know each other's sort of dark secrets and we know where we thrive and where we don't. And for that reason, it's been easy because we've worked together before. And my stint with DLC was amazing. 19 years,
Wow.
Technically, sort of from beginning to end. Really valued my opportunity there, but just, something comes up and there's an opportunity and here we are and we run forward.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And yeah, I mean, that luck, absolutely, the opportunity and preparedness. I love that one. And I think the other side of it too is I think, a lot of people, when they say they're lucky, it's also, having that measure of gratitude. I think there's always situations in our life, reasons to maybe be a little bit disgruntled. But I think, the perspective that you have of saying, actually, no, this is a good thing and I'm lucky to have it is another huge part of it. I'm kind of sensing that from you. You talked about in that kind of explanation there, I think, the relationship that you and Joe have. And, maybe we could dig into that a little bit. Like, how important is it to you, no matter what you're doing, I guess, but in this specific situation, let's talk about, now you're at Axiom. How important is having the right partners, or I guess maybe what's the downside of maybe some of the wrong partners? And the reason I ask is because I know folks listening out there are brokers who are thinking about maybe doing, different tech companies and maybe realizing, hey, I need to get a partner in here to help me take that thing to the next level, and having a tough time finding that right partner. So first of all, are partners important? If so, how do you kind of measure that? Who's going to be a good fit for what I'm trying to accomplish?
Like most things in life, partnerships are so important. Like, you've got Massimo, you two are thick as thieves. I look at, my old world at the DLC group and, Gary and Chris and Eddie and I were exceptionally close working together, and likewise Joe here. So to me, if we're going to spend most of our waking hours with each other, and you might be able to see behind me, but I built a sliding window between Joe's office and mine because we talk so much.
Like a drive-through window?
Yeah, like a drive-through window. So he orders a Big Macs for me, and I pick his brain on where we need to move the business forward. But the truth is, we talk so much that literally getting out of my chair and walking over to his office was a chore.
Yeah.
So now what we do is we just, I'll look over, and if he's not busy, he'll look up, and then I'll slide the window open and we'll just chat. Like, that's so important because it's anything you do in life. And, I think one of the hardest things for entrepreneurs is letting go of control.
Yes.
Especially when you've built it from the ground up. So, listen, you and Massimo are a good example. To bring a third partner in would be excruciatingly difficult. And, you would take as much time as you need to make those decisions. And same way with Joe, like, he's built this thing from the ground up, his blood, sweat, and tears are in it. And he doesn't want to bring someone in that's not the right fit, that's not going to carry on the culture that he feels is important to the organization. We've got 45 people here. My goal is not to come in here and blow it up unless it need to be blown up. But those are the conversations you have coming into it, right? Like, what is it you're looking for? And the conversation between Joe and I was probably close to 8 months.
8 months. Wow.
Yeah. of just back and forth.
No kidding. Wow.
And that's just kind of the way it works.
Yeah, that's incredible, right? I think that's a good lesson where so many people, I suffer from this, maybe some impatience, right? Especially when you feel that something needs to happen and maybe a big thing like bringing in a partner. I think it's, yeah, really easy to say, okay, let's just do it and get going and doing that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, like a partnership, like dating someone, like you said earlier, you don't want to, go on the first date and then get married tomorrow. It's, 8 months. That's incredible, but it's an amazing lesson.
I think, as they say, you hire slow and you fire fast,
Mm,
right?
I like that. Yeah.
You take your time to find the right person in no matter what area you're looking to hire. As soon as you figure out that they may not be the right person, it's probably a good indication that it's not the right person.
Yeah. Yeah. One of our mentors says, hey, by the time you're having the conversation, you probably should have parted ways a month ago. Right.
Yeah.
Because we're always delayed to have that because it's a painful conversation. Right. So there's always a bit of that delay. Wanted to pick up on one thing, going a little off script here, but if you'll indulge me, you talk about, just being close, opening up the drive-through window. Obviously, you're in the office. And I think one thing that's a big theme right now is this in office versus remote. We're doing, just so you know, I'm always in the office every day because I actually just had my first kid and it's a bit of chaos at home. So I'm here every day, but we have the team in 2 days a week right now. And we're trying to find that right balance. It sounds like maybe it's partial, maybe it's fully in office, but talk to me about what benefit, and you've alluded to it, but what benefit do you kind of see of actually being in office, being there at the same time, having those lunchtime conversations? How do you kind of measure that, or how do you convince the team that might be hesitant to go into the office that, hey, no, this is worth it, right? The benefits that we get from these in-person interactions, that benefit is there. How do you think about that?
It's difficult. I'm in the office every day unless I'm out for meetings. I think it starts from a position of leadership, right? It's
Yeah.
really hard to tell people that they got to be here every day if you're not. And,
Yes.
you decide on a Tuesday that you want to work from home because it's raining or whatever. It's about building relationships. And some of the best conversations we have are when we're in the office together. And Tom, you and I were kind of joking. I said I was a little late coming to this because we had, this 20-minute conversation about fried chicken and which fried chicken was the best. And we landed somewhere between Filipino and Korean fried chicken. So, but like, you can't do those things when you're working from home. Like, I can't Zoom call you and say, let's have a chat about fried chicken. Like, you know what I mean? Like, those things just don't happen. And so, we are pushing our people to be here more than they are at home. And we do accommodate people to work from home, but there is this intrinsic value of being in the office together that you just can't replace anywhere else.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the relationship. Absolutely. I think also, and I don't know if you agree with this too, it's also the innovation, right? You kind of heads down, maybe you're working on a tough problem, nothing's going, you lift your head up, you walk to the store to pick up some fried chicken. And it's that walk over where you say, hey, wait a sec, what if we did this or what if we did that? I think there's a lot of value there. That's how I think of it.
Yeah, I used to, it's funny because even during COVID, I would try to be in the office most days. And sometimes, I'd have to work from home because someone close to me got COVID. So I wanted to be careful and not have anyone get sick. But my best work was at the office.
Yeah.
I think we're all creatures that require each other's company, at least most of us, I think.
Yeah.
And the ability to just sort of walk down the hall and just sit in someone's chair and just banter and sometimes just vent.
Sure.
But you can't do that when you work from home. And I think that's the beauty of it. And maybe that's just because I'm old school, but it's kind of my mentality.
Well, I'll say this much: it's definitely making a comeback, and it is. And you know what? I'm very much so in the in-office camp for a lot of different reasons. So I always like to get that take. I want to pick up on two things that kind of seem contradictory, but you can maybe square the circle for me. Is, on one hand, you talk about leadership being super important, and I agree. You got to lead by example. The other side of things, you said, okay, I'm not a techie person, right? I'm not a coder. I'm not an engineer. I don't do that sort of thing. So, is that a struggle for you, I guess, on a day-to-day basis, or I guess in your role to say, okay, yes, I'm leading a tech company, but not having maybe the fingers on the keyboard, or maybe not. Maybe it hasn't been a roadblock. Maybe it's been a lot smoother than you think. And if it has been smoother, how do you feel that you've been able to have that success? I guess, first of all, do you think that's a contradiction? Is that something you're kind of thinking through or working through right now?
Listen, I think all struggles make us better. The really neat thing here is by coming here, Joe's been able to swim in his lane that he feels most comfortable with. And I'm swimming in a lane that I feel most comfortable with. And there is moments of intersection, but we find ways of working together. So some of our customers call him the mad scientist.
Okay. I could see that.
And and you call me the master of networking or whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it. But like I do that well. So, he puts me on the front side and front end and I'll talk to customers and I'll build the business. And it's easy when he gives me a really good product to pitch.
Mm.
And so that's really the beauty. And then if I come back to him and go, hey, so-and-so said this or suggested this, then it's been really easy because, he's got enough of the front end to know end user experience
Yep.
and go, okay, that makes sense. And then he's able to run back and build it for us when it makes sense. So it's been a real nice synergy. Like
Yeah.
if you told me, hey, Joe's going to step away for a year, you need to run, all development and front end, I probably would pull my hair out and
Sure.
probably have a nervous breakdown, but I don't
Sure.
have that problem. So long as he's willing to run the back end, we'll be in a good place. So been fortunate that way.
No, I think that that's really interesting. And maybe it kind of all comes together what you're talking about, because I do see sometimes, especially again, some of the audience or the folks that I've chatted with are mortgage brokers who are trying to start tech companies and they have all the experience maybe on the networking side, the sales side, and that's very natural. But then making that transition to tech is tough because it's a whole new skill set. So what I'm saying where it comes full circle is, the stuff you talked about of having the open window, right? I think maybe the way that it works really well is the fact that you guys have that trusting relationship. So,
And I think a lot of people make a mistake. I'm guilty of this as well, is we tend to hire people that are like us because it's easy, right?
yeah.
And it's hard to hire people that are not like us
Hmm.
because, it creates friction and imbalance. So, I always give, founders and entrepreneurs a lot of credit when they hire people that are not like them because it takes a lot of guts to make that kind of decision,
Yep.
right? And, if you look at all the great sort of partnerships in this world, they typically are not the same kind of people. They're very different in some ways. And they
Yep.
found a way to work together, allow each of them to sort of thrive in the area of strength and find that intersection that makes things work.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I mean, I think it also comes back to, you want to hire people like you because it's also that element of control too, right? You said something earlier and I definitely nodded along, which is I think the hardest thing for entrepreneurs is to give up control, right? They've built something, it's their baby. They have a very specific ways of getting things done. And if you're bringing someone who's not like you, then things are inevitably going to shift. So yeah, I think it takes a lot of bravery. I think that's a great way to put it. Well, let's switch gears again a little bit. And I want to get a little bit deeper. And this is something that I think has been very top of mind for me and something that, I've been given a lot of thought to. And I'm sure you have as well. Is I'm kind of thinking about there's these two things, kind of two competing forces right now being, well, not even competing. I think that makes it sound more dramatic than it is. But there's kind of a, especially related to mortgage tech, an independent movement, let's call it, and I think both of us might fall into that category. And then there's kind of the network led technology, right? So, networks who have built their own technology and sharing it with their brokers. And so, first and foremost, I guess, do you kind of see that? Is that the right way to kind of pitch how you're seeing things out in the marketplace right now? Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, listen, I think there's no question that the networks do their best to push their own technology onto their captive audiences. I get it. I was there. I pushed that narrative for a very long time. I think there is a place for the Axiom Scarletts of the world. The truth is, there's two big networks that probably control, let's say, 60% of all originations
Yeah.
across the country. So, to us, how do we find a way to coexist in that environment? Right.
Hmm.
So for me to think that we can come and fight the behemoths and think that we can knock them down, sure, it's possible, I guess,
Sure.
with enough
Yeah.
money and staying power. But to us, maybe it's a little bit of my philosophy. It's about cooperation and collaboration. If
Yep.
there's a way that we can win-win, then we all win. Right. And the truth is, we are a technology provider that does some great work for mortgage brokers
Yep.
and we can fill gaps. And that's why we have working relationships with DLC groups of the world. That's why, I was just down at the Verico conference because there's ways that we can find ways to work together and not step on each other's toes. So I think that's really where it comes down to is I think if you step on each other's toes, then you're ultimately going to end up in a fight.
Yep.
But if you find a way to be honest and open and find that common ground of opportunity, you can find a way to win-win. And that's always been my motto.
Yeah, interesting. Do you think there always is a win-win? I think that, sometimes, especially, when you might view someone as a maybe not a direct competitor, but a competitor on a couple different angles. And this might just be speaking maybe to your experience, because I know you've been around the block a bunch of times, is to say, okay, no matter what situation we're in or anyone's in, is there that win-win to be found? Do you genuinely believe that? And if so, how do you kind of go about navigating that, right? Especially in that situation where you say, okay, hey, do you know what? Kind of does look like on at least the service level, we're really competing with each other. How do I actually come to you and say, no, maybe not. And actually, hey, if I can do this for you, that's going to benefit you. And actually, that's going to also benefit me. How do you even start those conversations, or how do you think about that?
It reminds me a little bit of that prisoner's dilemma model, right?
Okay.
Where
Yeah.
if we both agree to play nice, then we'll both share in the prize.
Yes.
But if one decides to quote unquote screw the other, then one wins and the other one loses. So listen, at the end of the day, do we split it right down the middle? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
If one person's got more leverage than the other, then the sharing of the pie may differ from one versus the other. But I think at the end of the day, so long as the long-term objectives don't intersect,
Mm-hmm.
if you and I are going after the same prize, then ultimately we're going to end up in a position of conflict.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, if your prize is different from my prize, it's about looking at a situation and seeing it beyond what exists today. And I think that's the way we've always approached it here at Axiom and Scarlett. So, one of the things that drew me to Joe was a lot of these kind of conversations about, where does Axiom play in the world of the mortgage broker space? And, is it our goal to squeeze and take from the networks? And the answer was always a no. Like, we're not going to direct connect to lenders. I think if that decision was ultimately made, my mentality is that I have a conversation and tell people, because if the business model changes, then I owe it to the partners to say, my model's changing. This is the reason why.
Yeah.
But today it's not the case. And for that reason, people are willing to play with us and allow us into their tent, if you want to call it that, and know that we're not here to pillage them, that we're here to actually make it bigger than it is today.
Yeah. Well, I think that's exactly right. I honestly think it's maybe a little bit of a human nature thing. I think we see it play out, sometimes in the political sphere, if I abstract to that, which is your gain is my loss, right? I think that there is a human maybe tendency to think that, that the pie is only so big. And so if you win, if there's rich people out there, that means that they've taken from the poor people, right? Or something like that. That's drawing the analogy. And I think that if I were to summarize, is the last kind of point you made at the end, which is, hey, if we actually work together, it's not just one pie. The pie can get bigger, right? We can increase the pie by working together. And I think that's such a powerful thing.
Tom, I'll probably draw a little bit back to our original conversation, which is these aren't easy things to have. And as you said, human nature naturally tends to think negatively. Honestly, this is where sort of, I guess, my history in the industry and my reputation sort of sets in and goes, have I ever behaved in a way that would make you believe that I'm coming in here to say one thing and do another?
Right.
Tom, as you said, we're only good as our reputation.
Yeah.
And that's why, I'm always very careful that, we try to move in a direction that doesn't give people reason to doubt the words that come out of our mouths.
No, yeah, it's one of those crazy things, right? It's, a couple things come to mind is, it can take a lifetime to build trust, and it just takes one action to lose it, right? I think it is. And drawing on, you talked about our upbringing. I'll draw on mine briefly is that, remember growing up, my dad would always talk about this reputation, and he'd always say it. And I'd be a bratty teenager and say, you don't know what you're talking about, Dad. And, here I am, how many years later, and talking about that exact thing. So it's funny how these things kind of come full circle. One thing, I guess, too, so we kind of talked about obviously this independence network, these two separate things, and how we can make the pie bigger. And I think those are the right conversations to be having at the level that you're at. What's your, pulse on the ground as it relates to these sorts of things? Like, do you get the sense that this is something that, for an agent listening, is this something that, is highly relevant to them? Is this something that they should be, thinking about? Or at the end of the day, hey, they should just be kind of focusing on the right technology that just makes their business the best it can be? What would you kind of say to that agent who's listening to this conversation?
My motto always is, I want you to make an informed decision.
Yep.
Right? I'm not here to pitch you and hard sell you. I think if I came across and sold you a bill of goods to win you as a customer and then you're disappointed, it just makes my life a living hell. I don't need cancer in my network of customers. I rather, tell you, listen, here's what I got compared to what you think you need. And if Scarlett or whatever is the right decision, whether it's our payroll platform, whatever, then great, jump in. But if it's not the right decision, that's okay too. Like, we're not going to win every single customer and everyone's different. So from that perspective, my motto has always been make an informed decision, whatever you do in life, right?
Yeah.
I made an informed decision when I decided to join Axiom versus staying at DLC. I weighed my pros and cons and I made a decision. I'm good with it.
Yep.
Right. So,
Yeah.
and same thing with technology is some of these are big decisions for owners and agents. And, I always say, listen, just make sure that you see everything and are comfortable, make the right decision for you. So whether that's Blue Mortgage for CRM or it's something else, then make those decisions. And then you're at peace with it and I'm at peace with it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good way to put it. And, I think like all these things too, it's, first of all, it is pros and cons. I think if you're ever, in a situation where, it just seems like it's all pros and, hey, this is a slam dunk, or someone's telling you that, then, hey, maybe you haven't done the proper diligence, because it's always a trade-off, right? As you are familiar with all the platforms out there, there's a ton of great platforms and each of them have their own strengths, right? And I think that's just what it comes down to, is to say, okay, well, which of those strengths most closely align with you? And, the other part of it then to say is, it is a little bit of an individual decision. I think in this industry, but other industries too, absolutely, is sometimes we're a bit guilty of the hive mind, right? Which is, okay, well, I'm maybe not going to do the diligence necessarily because, hey, my friend down the street does it and, that's good enough for me. But I do think these things come to call, right? And if you aren't making those individual decisions, you eventually will, right? So whether it's intentional or it's forced on you because maybe you didn't make the right decision, it does come around.
Yeah. And that's what I've always said to Joe is one of the things that drew us together is I said to Joe, listen, you've done a great job building a product, but you haven't done such a great job letting people know about it. Right. So, I'm no miracle worker, but if I can help sort of get the word out and let people see it and experience it, then I think we'll win.
Yeah.
But, it's a little bit like when I used to coach baseball, I tell the kids, I go, listen, you can't promise me a home run or a single or a double. I said, but you can do all the right things to get a hit. And then, so you control your actions, you don't control your results. So go out and do all the right things and the results will ultimately come. But I can't promise you that I'm going to move mountains. And I think that's sort of the mentality here is we'll get the product out and let people see it. And we'll let people make decisions based on what they think of it.
Well, yeah. And to that point, I was pumping up your tires at the beginning. So I didn't say it then, but I'll do it again now just to kind of do it. And maybe it's been your influence, Dong, or maybe it's Joe or someone else on the team. But I think you guys have been really killing it recently. I know you came out with a new kind of platform on the Scarlett side, some of your AML stuff. That was great. And just kind of more buzz on the street, different conferences, seeing where you guys are up to. I think it's all been really, really positive. So you can choose to take credit of that or not. But I guess question with that, or just comment with that, is I guess it aligns with what you're saying of kind of getting out there, and you feel that you are making those strides that you kind of set out to do. Do you still feel that you're only at the beginning of a very long journey? How do you think about taking, if you can, a bit of a scorecard on the past? What's it been, 6 months? I don't know. But have you kind of started to make those strides where you were hoping to in this role?
Yeah. So it's been 9 months. It feels a lot longer than that.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a really hard thing to measure. I think we're always hardest on ourselves.
Yep. Sure.
And so, I'll go home some nights and go, I think we could have done better there, or are we really making an impact there? And, it's funny, we overuse this word stress.
Okay.
And I was reading this book and they said people use the word stress way too often. And the truth is the people who struggle with stress are people who live lives where they have no control over the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I don't struggle with that. Like I'm in an environment where I have control over the outcome I have. So listen, I make some good decisions and I make some really bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can talk to the team here and they'll put their hand and go, yep.
They're on next week. They're on next week. So yeah.
This is why I'm opening up. So
yeah.
When you have the ability to make those choices and have influence, then you feel pretty good about, the day that you've had. And I think we're having some success. I'll talk to the team and they're like, yeah, we've got more opportunities we've ever had before. And trying to juggle all these things all at once is tough to do.
Yep.
Feedback like that makes me feel good. And, listen, much like you, you might do something today, but the reaps of those rewards might not come for another 3 to 6 months. So if you're looking for quick wins, I don't think business works that way anymore. So, I hope that the effort we put in the last little while is starting to reap its benefits, but yeah, I guess we'll wait and see what the numbers look like.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. A couple of things. I think one thing someone said to me is we always overestimate what we're going to complete in a year, but we underestimate what we're going to complete in 10 years, right? And I think it speaks to that, right? Where it's, hey, you know what, you come in and you try and get all these quick wins, but the real wins happen when you do those actions every single day. And, Ron Butler, he was an early client of ours. I think you work with him in a couple different ways. Really early on, Massimo actually was having this conversation with him. And, we were early on and saw his success, and he is successful. And so what's your secret? What is it? Come on, let us know the secret sauce. He's like, there's no secret. Literally Monday to Friday, I show up every single day at 9 a.m. I sit at this desk till 6 p.m. and I do mortgages during that time. And then I do the same thing the next day and the next day. And I've been doing that for 15 years or longer, or whatever it's been. It's those actions, like you said.
Yeah. And Tom, the truth is one day is different from the next. And I think that's another reason why I come to the office, is because some days honestly, it's tough to get up in the mornings. I don't have the energy. I don't feel like the momentum's there. And sometimes I just need to be in the office and just need to talk to somebody. And maybe that is the spark. Some days I'll go home and I'm like, I didn't really accomplish very much today. And some days you're like, wow, this was a great day. So, what I mean? But we need each other to lift. Yeah. There's no secret sauce to success. It's a lot of hard work. It's discipline. It's having a strategy. It's having a little bit of luck. And hopefully, getting to the finish line a little bit faster than somebody else.
Yeah. No, I love it. Well, maybe to wrap up, Don, we've been chatting for a bit here, and it's been great. I really appreciate it. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this, because this is always the number one question I'm getting these days, as I'm sure you are, is, all the buzz about AI. We go back to the panel that we are on, and I think you expressed a little bit of, I don't know if skepticism is the right word, but maybe a little bit of caution. I don't know. But how are you kind of thinking about, I guess, the whole buzz, which is artificial intelligence, the buzz, but then also, the technology itself? Is there something there? And are you guys just kind of keeping your ear to the ground? Are you thinking about building stuff? How are you kind of thinking about, this sphere that's kind of, or this new, I'll call it modality that's kind of come to us? How are you guys kind of thinking about it there?
I go back to this quote from the Harvard Business Review that said, AI won't replace humans. Humans who use AI will replace humans.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then I think when I look at AI, people only look at AI from the perspective of generative AI, which is the chat GPTs of the world.
Yeah.
But the truth is there's other aspects of AI that people forget about. Automations, machine learning. And I look at the business that you and I run, and we use a lot of AI in our business. The automations that you run on the CRM side is AI, right? The ability to process large amounts of data is AI. And people don't realize that we already have a lot of AI in our lives. And to me, it baffles my mind because so many people don't leverage it.
Yeah.
Right? There's this graph I show once in a while. It shows the number of hours worked per week over the last 150 years. And every year we work less and less. And the reason why we work less and less is because we've allowed automations and other technologies to help make our lives better. Right? We used to take applications by hand.
Yeah.
Then we used to fax them. Now we've got, beautiful, application journeys. And so, at Axiom, we've got, something called Scarlett Genius, which is, a platform that we embed right behind our application engine, which by the time you finish inputting the application, the engine will tell you which lenders best fit the attributes of that customer. We've got tools in place that allow you to auto-generate notes for lenders. Like these are all things and tools to help make your life a little bit better. So, 15-minute carved here, 10-minute carved there, times, 100 transactions ends up becoming meaningful. So to me, we're going to be inundated with more AI. I just think people need to use it more. And, I look at Blue as an example and think, so much of the work that you do through automations and CRM work is AI, but there's so many customers out there that don't do any form of CRM, and it blows my mind because to me that just means that people are ignorant, and those are the people that will ultimately get replaced because the people that do use platforms like yours and mine will get ahead. We'll have more hours in the day. They'll be the ones that win.
Yeah. No, I think it's right. I think it's, again, maybe going back to that human nature thing. I think it's easy and fun to chase the shiny object, right? The tool that'll write a song for me, or it'll, make a video of this or that. And I'm guilty of it. I like to chase those things. But I think the really sometimes hard thing, and this might not be what people want to hear, is going out and actually implementing these types of solutions, going out, doing the hard work, understanding how they work, and putting your business into those tools and those solutions. And I think that's tough, but I think that's what's required.
Well, there's a McKinsey study that said in 2025, 30% of all AI projects will be abandoned.
Yes, right.
Because truth is you and I can demo a really cool prototype, but putting it into action with mass scale data is another feat in itself. And I think,
Yep.
People have been awed by beautiful prototypes and demos. And then when they try to actually implement it, doesn't work. So, do the little things and don't
Yeah.
chase the big things. And, if you can carve a few minutes here and there, if you can make your communication with your customers simpler and faster, then you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like it's right in front of you, a lot of the tools.
Love it. Well, listen, Dong, I really appreciate the time here. I've taken more than enough of it. I know you're a busy guy, but really appreciate the conversation and learned a lot from you. Great to hear your journey. I think it's an exemplary one. And I think anyone who's looking to have success in the industry is really going to benefit from this conversation. So thank you. I guess just to wrap up, if people want to, I don't know, learn a little bit more of what you're up to these days, where can they find you?
So our website is axiominnovations.com. If you want to reach me by email, it's dong.lee@axiominnovations.com. I think the email is way too long, by the way. I'll have a conversation about Joe with that because I can't barely spell innovations, let alone Axiom. So anyways.
Two N's, right? Two N's, one V. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
See, exactly.
Yeah.
Try texting it to somebody.
Oh, God. Yeah, okay.
But
Yeah.
anyways, and then I've got Facebook and LinkedIn and all that stuff. So I shouldn't be too hard to find.
Amazing. Thanks, Dong. Have a good one.
Thanks, Tom.